Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something big, a
Absolutely.
huge piece of legislation. It's set to pretty much rewrite the rules for, what, 11 million private renters?
And 2.3 million landlords across England. Yeah. The Renters' Rights Bill.
It's one of those, fundamental shifts in housing law. It's going to touch almost everyone involved in renting.
It really is. And our job today, I think, is to sort of cut through all the jargon, the legal bits.
Yeah, get to the core of it.
Extract what's really changing. Not just the new rules on paper, but what they actually mean.
Right. What problems is it trying to solve, and how's it going to reshape things, especially around stability and the quality of homes?
Exactly. Because the background here, I mean, our sources make it pretty clear. It's quite stark, isn't it?
It is. For millions, the private rented sector, well, it's often the least affordable option.
And the worst quality housing, too.
And the least secure, compared to other ways people live. The whole system, you could argue, it's kind of allowed this culture of fear to build up for tenants.
That fear is probably the number one thing this bill is aiming at.
You mean the fear of complaining?
Yeah, exactly. The fear that if you, point out there's damp or a leak, or even just ask for something reasonable.
Bang. 2 months' notice hits the mat.
And with no reason given. They don't have to tell you why. That's Section 21.
Which brings us neatly to the biggest headline, doesn't it? The promise to get rid of Section 21 no-fault evictions altogether.
That's the banner change.
Okay, so let's unpack that. If Section 21 is gone, what's the single biggest difference for a tenant just wanting to stay in their home?
It means no more arbitrary evictions. Simple as that. A landlord can't just end your tenancy unless they have a proper, legally defined reason.
So it shifts the power balance.
Hugely. It gives tenants the confidence, hopefully, to actually use their rights. Complain about bad conditions, challenge an unfair rent hike.
Without that immediate threat of just being kicked out hanging over them.
Precisely. That constant sort of nuclear option is removed from the landlord's toolkit.
Okay, but to make that security real, they had to change the actual tenancy agreements themselves, right? Fixed-term contracts are basically out.
Correct. This is a really fundamental change. Forget those standard 6 or 12-month fixed terms.
So what replaces them?
All assured tenancies will just become periodic from day one. Rolling contracts, essentially. Meaning the tenancy just keeps going, month by month usually, until the tenant decides to end it.
Ah, so the tenant gives notice.
Yeah, the tenant gives 2 months' notice when they want to leave, so you get stability, you can stay put, but also flexibility.
Flexibility to leave if the place is awful or your circumstances change.
Exactly. You're not trapped in a rubbish property for months on end because of a fixed term.
And the way they're bringing this in, it's quite bold. The sources say it's all happening at once, one implementation date.
Yeah, no messy two-tier system where some people are on old contracts, some on new.
Existing tenancies just convert on the day.
Which, shows how serious they are about getting rid of Section 21 quickly.
Yeah.
But we do need to be balanced.
Of course.
If tenants get this indefinite security, landlords still need a way to get their property back if they have a genuine reason.
Right, it can't be a one-way street. So the old system for evicting with a reason, Section 8, that's being kept but changed.
It's being completely overhauled, made clearer, stronger, fairer. Hopefully.
Okay, so what are the main mandatory grounds? The reasons where a court has to grant possession if the landlord proves their case. What will most landlords use now instead of Section 21?
Well, the two big ones for situations where the tenant hasn't done anything wrong are ground one, the landlord or their close family needs to move in.
Okay, makes sense.
And ground 1A, the landlord genuinely wants to sell the property.
Right, selling up. Those cover the most common reasons a landlord might need the property back, I suppose.
They ensure the owner keeps control for those key life events, yeah.
But hang on, couldn't a, less scrupulous landlord just use that as a loophole, buy a place, rent it for a bit, then just claim they want to sell to get the tenant out? Like a backdoor Section 21?
That's a fair concern, and the bill anticipates it. There are specific safeguards built in.
Such as?
Well, first off, there's a 12-month protected period right at the start of any new tenancy. Meaning the landlord cannot use the moving in ground or the selling up ground for that whole first year.
Ah, okay. That stops people buying, renting briefly, then evicting straight away.
Exactly. It discourages using renting as just a short-term speculative thing.
Yeah.
And second,
Yes.
even after that first year, if the landlord does use one of those grounds selling or moving in, they have to give the tenant 4 months' notice.
4 months? That's double the old Section 21 notice.
It is. So you get that initial year of security, plus potentially 4 months to find somewhere new. It really does change the dynamic for renters.
Okay, let's switch to evictions where the tenant is at fault. Specifically, rent arrears. Landlords obviously need a way to deal with non-payment.
Of course. But the bill tries to add a bit more protection against eviction for, say, temporary financial problems.
How
The mandatory threshold for eviction because of arrears is going up. It used to be 2 months' worth of arrears.
But now?
Now it's 3 months' worth, or 13 weeks' worth, before a court must order eviction under that specific ground.
And the notice period for that ground is changing too?
Also doubling, from 2 weeks up to 4 weeks.
What does that matter? Seems like a small change.
Well, it gives the tenant a bit more breathing space, doesn't it?
I suppose.
It acknowledges that life happens. People hit rough patches. That extra month on the arrears threshold, plus the longer notice, it just gives more time to potentially sort things out, pay back the debt, and maybe save the tenancy.
Right, trying to keep people in their homes if possible.
It's about tenancy preservation, yeah.
Okay, moving on to money, but in a different way. Financial fairness. There's this worry, isn't there? If landlords can't use Section 21, they might just whack up the rent massively to force people out. A sort of backdoor eviction.
Yep, that's a key concern. The bill tackles it directly. From now on, any rent increase has to follow the official Section 13 process.
Which means...
Only once a year, and only up to the current market rate for similar properties.
But the crucial bit is challenging it, right? If you think the increase is too high, you can take it to a tribunal.
Exactly, the first-tier tribunal. They act as an independent judge. And here's the really important protection for tenants.
Go on.
If you challenge the rent increase at the tribunal, you face zero risk of ending up worse off.
What do you mean?
The tribunal can agree with you and lower the rent, or keep it as the landlord proposed. But it can never increase it beyond what the landlord originally asked for in their notice.
Ah, I see. So you can only win or break even, financially speaking.
Precisely. And another key point. The increase only takes effect from the date the tribunal makes its decision. It won't be backdated.
So no nasty surprises with months of back rent suddenly due. That really does take the risk out of challenging an unfair increase.
It should encourage tenants to actually use the process, yeah? And there are other measures aimed at upfront costs, too, like banning rental bidding.
That whole stressful thing where you feel pressured to offer more than the asking rent just to secure a place.
That's the one. It'll be illegal for landlords or agents to ask for, encourage, or accept offers above the advertised rent.
And there are penalties.
Yep, local councils can hit them with civil penalties up to £7,000 if they do it, trying to level the playing field a bit.
Good. And what about demanding loads of rent up front, like first month, last month, deposit? It adds up incredibly fast.
That's being restricted too. Landlords won't be allowed to demand any rent payment before you've actually signed the tenancy agreement.
Okay.
And once you have signed, the maximum advance rent they can ask for is limited. Just 1 month's rent, basically, or up to 28 days' worth.
That should make moving much more affordable for people without huge savings.
That's the idea. Make the sector more accessible.
Okay, so we've tackled security, evictions, rent. Now, if tenants feel more secure, they're more likely to demand better quality housing.
Right.
Which brings us to standards and getting problems fixed.
Exactly. And this is where the Decent Home Standard, or DHS, comes in. For the first time, it's being applied properly to most private rented homes.
So houses have to be in decent condition, reasonably modern.
Basically, yes. Proper state of repair, modern facilities, safe. And linked to that, we're seeing Awaab's law being extended to the private sector.
Which is hugely significant, named after that awful tragedy.
The death of 2-year-old Awaab Ishak. From exposure to mold, yeah. It really highlighted the desperate need for action.
So what does Awaab's law do in the private sector?
It sets strict, legally binding timeframes for landlords to investigate and fix serious hazards like damp and mold.
And if they don't?
Tenants can take them to court to force them to act. It gives real teeth to those quality standards.
And to oversee all this, there's a whole new body being set up, the Landlord Ombudsman.
Yes, a mandatory scheme.
Yep.
Every single private landlord must join this ombudsman service.
And for tenants?
It's free to use. It offers impartial decisions on complaints, and crucially, those decisions are binding.
So the ombudsman can actually force landlords to do things like apologize, fix the issue, pay compensation.
Exactly. It's an alternative to going through the courts, designed to be quicker and easier.
And if landlords just refuse to join, the penalties sound pretty
They
serious.
are. Fines start around £7,000 for a first offense,
Okay.
but they can escalate sharply, up to £40,000, or even criminal prosecution if they keep refusing or have repeat offenses.
Wow. Okay. They really want everyone signed up.
It's meant to drive out the worst landlords, the criminal element, who just ignore the rules.
And to help track who's who, there's also this new private rented sector database. Landlords have to register themselves and their properties.
That's right, mandatory registration.
What's the point of that, practically speaking, for, say, the local council trying to enforce things?
It's basically an intelligence tool for them. Cuts down on the admin nightmare of trying to find out who owns what.
Right, a central record.
Yeah, it gives councils reliable data so they can target the bad landlords more effectively, instead of chasing paperwork. And importantly, if a landlord isn't registered on this database,
Then what?
they generally can't use most of those Section 8 grounds we talked about to get their property back. Except for really serious antisocial behavior grounds, it's another lever to ensure compliance.
Okay, nearly there. Let's quickly cover fair access and pets. The bill tackles discrimination too, doesn't it?
Yes, explicitly. It will be illegal to discriminate against potential tenants just because they receive benefits.
Yeah.
They'll no DSS ads.
Or because they have children.
Or because they have children, exactly. Tackling both the obvious discrimination and the more subtle, indirect stuff.
But what if a landlord says, oh, my mortgage company won't let me rent to people on benefits, or the main lease on the building forbids it?
Ah, good point. The bill actually addresses that directly. Any clause in a mortgage agreement or a superior lease that tries to restrict letting to those groups,
Yes.
it would be made legally of no effect. Basically, those clauses become void.
So the landlord can't use their mortgage provider as an excuse to discriminate.
Precisely. It closes that potential loophole.
Very clever. Okay, and finally, pets. A big one for many renters. What's changing?
Landlords will now have to consider any request from a tenant to keep a pet. They can't just have a blanket no pets policy anymore.
And they can't unreasonably refuse.
That's the key phrase, cannot unreasonably refuse.
Right.
So they need a good reason to say no. But there's a protection for landlords too.
Which is?
To cover potential damage, landlords will be allowed to require the tenant to take out pet insurance.
Okay. So tenant gets their pet, landlords get some protection against damage. Seems like a reasonable balance.
Hopefully, yeah. A big win for animal lovers who rent.
So looking back at everything we've covered, it really is a massive overhaul, isn't it? We're moving away from the system where your security kind of depends on your landlord's goodwill towards one based on clear legal rights and responsibilities for both sides.
Absolutely. The whole theme, really, is rebalancing that power dynamic, giving tenants the ability to demand decent conditions and stability without that constant fear of being evicted for no reason.
Right.
And just stepping back a bit, it's not just the new rules, is it? It's the enforcement side, too.
You mentioned the Ombudsman, the database.
Yeah, and local councils are getting beefed up powers. They'll be able to demand information from banks, accountants, other third parties.
To really build solid cases against the bad actors.
Exactly. They're being given the tools to actually make these rules stick.
Which leads to a final thought. You know about rent repayment orders, RROs, where councils can reclaim rent paid to landlords who've broken certain laws, like running an unlicensed HMO or harassment.
Yes, a powerful tool.
Well, the maximum amount they can reclaim is doubling, from 12 months' rent up to 24 months' rent.
Wow, 2 years' worth of rent potentially clawed back.
Exactly. So here's something to think about. With that massive increase in the financial penalty for getting caught breaking the rules, what kind of pressure will that put on landlords? How many might decide the risk is too high and just leave the market?
That's a really interesting question. The potential financial hit becomes enormous.
It really does. Something for all of us, I think, to keep an eye on as these huge reforms start to roll out and bed in.